Yeah, just like 1 minute late today. So 2:01 is when I'm starting today. So good afternoon, everyone. How's my lighting? Let's see. I'm gonna turn on one more lamp. I have a bunch of floor lamps here. Not a bunch. I have two floor lamps and one has two bulbs on it, so it's not like a really elaborate lighting system here. But I can improve the lighting here. Oh, let's see. Let me turn on. I have one more light I can turn on. Okay. There we go. It's a little better. Not that it matters that much, but I want to look like I'm in a well-lit place, I guess. It's one of those days where it's like hot but cloudy, and yeah, I lived in Florida for 6 years, and this was my least favorite kind of Florida weather, and it did happen a lot this time of year. But it's not always, and probably going to be some storms later. That's the other thing about the nice thing about Florida weather is very predictable. You'd have a storm about 1:30 every afternoon in Gainesville, where I lived, so it was pretty easy to plan around that actually. So anyway, I hope you all are doing okay. There's a lot going on in the news, so I don't really have anything prepared to say about what's been happening, but kind of a lot. So I posed a question in the live stream chat Slack channel. So if you have some thoughts, particularly about this Twitter situation, you can certainly reply there in Slack, or maybe if you have something that's a little bit more complicated to say, then maybe a blog entry would be a better place to do that. Yeah, lots of things happening. I'm looking at breaking news, or I guess it's breaking because this is the first time I've seen this, and I've been watching the news all day. Looks like the police officer in Minneapolis who killed George Floyd has been arrested. So that's big news. Certainly a lot of stuff going on there. In terms of what we're going to cover today, I was mainly going to talk about the writing part of your articles and actually look at some of them to give you some feedback on some of the directions you're headed in right now. And I know articles are somewhat, they're in different states, and that's fine, but I want to make sure you know what things you should be looking at to work on if you are planning to work on them today and tomorrow. Everything, of course, this week is due tomorrow, so please try to get that in. If things need to come in later, that's okay. I still will accept it, but it's a little awkward, especially with this group project, because you all need to be working together to try to get your article completed by tomorrow. If this week goes like last week, some of you will probably be doing most of the work for this week tonight and tomorrow, and again, that's fine. But just make sure that you prioritize working on that article, because we want to get those in good shape so that I can start. I can give you some detailed feedback on them, and then start importing them into the Manifold platform so we can actually look at try to publish this. Yeah, let's see. A couple other thoughts about what's going on in the news. So my question, I'll just go ahead and switch into that, and then we'll get into the articles. Sorry, this will be kind of disorganized today, but this is just what's going on. Yeah, so as I mentioned in the Slack channel, the big news in terms of in social media and fake news is that Twitter's gone a step further. So as you recall, Twitter initially labeled some of Donald Trump's tweets as potentially misleading and provided a link to some information to provide context and clarity. Donald Trump claimed without offering evidence, that mail-in voting would lead to massive fraud, and he's continued to make that claim. Some of those tweets, not these, I mean, they've not continued this apparently, but some of those tweets were labeled, and I don't know if I can, he tweets so much, so I don't know how far down I need to go to find those, but those were labeled as, with some information. So it was that the tweets were there, but there was a little bit of information there. Donald Trump felt that was censorship, which was inaccurate. That's not what that was. And, his tweets were still there, first of all, but also Twitter is not a public entity, so they're not responsible to let everything go unfiltered. But in any case, Donald Trump issued an executive order, and I haven't actually read the text of it yet, but from what I gather, it just changes. It's a recommendation to change the rules about how Twitter and other social media companies are classified by the FCC. And it seems whether or not something will actually happen will take some time and probably several lawsuits to figure out. So there's currently no impact to Twitter. So yeah, we'll see. But then today, I guess, or well, 13 hours, so maybe last night, Donald Trump tweeted something that Twitter felt like was violating the rules about glorifying violence. Certainly something he's done before, and that I've reported him doing before, like many people have. And Twitter has historically just said, we just leave it up because his tweets have historical value. And now, though, they've decided to actually hide this one. So the tweet is still here. Let's see what it actually says. Yeah, okay. So, any difficulty and we will assume control, but when the looting starts, the shooting starts. So, I mean, that does sound like a pretty specific threat against protesters. So that's, I mean, looters and other people too, but just to kind of show, I mean, to kind of point to shooting there is really troubling. You can also see over here trending. I don't know, maybe you can see. My head's probably covering it. It's interesting that Zimmerman and George Wallace are both trending. So there's a lot of, I guess, kind of dark stuff trending right now. Well, anyway, the other thing I was going to mention about fake news, I don't have it up here, but there was I saw an interesting thread on Twitter this morning about the protest slash, these things are still going on. Okay. The protests and the looting that's going on right now. And there's a claim now that I've seen on social media that the looting actually was instigated or initialized by police. So this is what's called a false flag conspiracy, or I guess theory. And as evidence of this, there's a video that I saw of someone breaking windows at an AutoZone, and the claim in that video is that was actually a police officer out of uniform. Now I don't know this person, but that's an example of the kind of claim in this context, in this really charged environment, that can really shift people's opinions very quickly. And so that's the kind of claim that would make sense to, investigate and try to verify. And that's the work that a journalist would probably is probably working on right now. Like that's the kind of thing that we should also be trying to fact check for this project. Of course, we have a different focus, and so that's we don't need to fact check that one. But that's the kind of claim that I hope you take away from this project. I hope you take it away an ability to fact check or think critically about claims like that. We don't know for sure who that person was, so claiming that he's a police officer also is another stretch. And so we would need to try to figure that out. I don't know why, he just tweeted the word China, all caps. Right, like why? Like what's going on here? Okay, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so let me get into Canvas to take a look at the notes for today. I usually post an announcement in the mornings, but today I just thought I'd post the notes. I just shared it, and I checked the box, so hopefully it notified you that the notes were up for today, because that's really all I had to say. So let's pull those up and then talk through a couple of things in here, but mainly today what we're focusing on is writing. And so I want to take a look at your articles and offer any suggestions I can, as well as follow up on the exercise from yesterday. So let's see. Oh, I think I need to link it to the schedule page still. No, I didn't. Okay. No, wait, that's week 1. So there it is. Let me add the link there. The page is up. If you go to pages and then all pages, you can get to it. But yeah, I forgot to update this outline page. And no updates yet from Canvas about fixing this little interface issue that I'm experiencing right now, but it's okay. I can work around it. So week, where are we now? Assignments. Scroll. Week 2, day 4. Okay. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Okay, here we are. Okay, 7 viewers. Hello, 7 viewers. If you just joined me, I was just talking a bit about some of the news with Twitter and Facebook. Well, I hadn't mentioned Facebook yet, but that's also in the news because Mark Zuckerberg apparently said that he doesn't feel that social media should be, as he says, arbiters of truth. That's a really unfortunate choice of words, I feel like, because it implies that truth is arbitrary. And we decided yesterday that there is a way we can determine if something is true. And it is reasonable and appropriate to say some things are true and some things are not true. I certainly believe that. So I think Mark Zuckerberg's, I guess, attempt at a kind of laissez-faire definition of truth and a corporation's responsibility towards it, I think, is really disappointing. Not super surprising, but unfortunate. So, that said, I do kind of see where he's coming from, because at what point do you stop, right? I mean, what kind of truth is worth correcting, and what kind of truth is just letting it slide. So I don't know. I do see his point of view too, actually, even though I am disappointed by it. Okay, so let's take a look at the goals for today. It's really just about writing the article and then finishing your module, whatever module you're working on. I've seen you all talking about that in your group channels, which is great. It's largely independent work on those, so you may have something that you can do on your own. That might be helpful if, like, you've already completed work on the article, or you're waiting for someone else to complete their part of the article. That might be a good way to spend some time. But hopefully those are going okay. If you have any questions about those, let me know. You can, of course, chat in the Twitch channel, or on Twitch, or in the live stream chat channel, whatever you feel like doing. And let's take a look. So we looked yesterday we talked about going upstream to the original source, and I hopefully showed you clearly how to do that in Google, but that's, you got to look for, sometimes it does take a bit more work. Sometimes you've got to look use the advanced search queries in Google to find the earliest mention of something, then click on that and see if it's actually genuine in terms of its date. If you can find evidence of somebody, like, usually a good journalist will cite their sources or point to their sources. So if you are reading an article and it says something, hopefully it tells you where it got that from, and then you can go back to that source and see what they actually said. And then you can kind of work your way down to it. What you may be finding too, by the way, is sometimes that original source said something and then the downstream source quoted them or paraphrased them, but they did it in a way that actually distorted the original claim. So that's definitely the kind of thing I want to see you talking about when you get into the origin statement, that it's maybe started off as one thing, but then by the time it got to InfoWars, it was something else. And that's what we're interested in documenting in those articles. So that was going upstream. Yesterday you were looking at reading laterally, and I didn't see if anyone posted in the general chat channel, but I did see you in your individual group channels talking about, sorry, I'm trying to keep off of those channels. I did see you in your individual channels talking about your sources, and the following instructions to read those, to read laterally on those articles. So, I mean, these are websites that I am familiar with, having done this exercise before, but let's see. So group one, I think you are correct about CIS.org. You've used Wikipedia and Snopes as lateral reading evidence to point that out, but they also, like, if you literally read their about page, it's pretty clear what they're doing anyway. But again, reading laterally is not looking at the about page, it's looking at other places, and you did that and found just even Wikipedia says that they are an anti-immigration think tank, and so if they have something to say about immigration, we need to understand what their point of view on that is. Like, they are against immigration, so anything they have to say about it is likely shaped by that agenda, which is, everybody has an agenda, but that's theirs. Okay, let's see, what else? Yeah, so, and also group 2 is looking at Kodo. I don't actually remember what. Oh yes, Kodo, CODOH, that's the Holocaust denial website, I think. And you're right, Samantha, that there is a lot of evidence from the site itself that it's gross, but we need to try to look at others, see what other sources say about it. So so this, I don't know if Samantha's watching, but this is you remember, reading laterally is looking at what other people say. So we need to look at what other people say about Kodo.com, not what it says about itself. Even though, yeah, I mean, we might be completely convinced by this. I mean, like, there's basically not a lot of ambiguity here. We're still trying to practice the technique, and we're trying to resist that immediate conclusion, like that immediate, like, what's going on here, right? So we're trying to resist our gut feeling. So let's see what we can do. I'll just go ahead and do this. Let's do a site search here. Let's look for, what do people say about Kodo.com that are not Kaiser.com themselves. Let's see what we can find out. Okay, great. So again, the first article is, the first result is Holocaust denial. So this is right. So pretty specific. So this is an organization, and this is very, lots of cited sources here. So and this is reading laterally here because I'm looking at Wikipedia, and if I, really to be thorough, I should look at these sources. Let's take a look. I don't know what this actually is. Oh, 1998. Wow. Let's see. Yeah, you can see these sources here are pretty specific and pretty clearly concluding what we probably thought initially by just first looking at this. Let's see what else is there from reading laterally. There's looks like a subreddit. Not going to click on that. What is Castle Hill Publishers? Like sometimes you'll actually go here and you'll find out like, okay, this one looks like it's actually the same organization, at least they use the same logo. So this, even though it's a different domain, does appear to be the same group, same people. So if we were really trying to exclude them, we would probably just need to add that domain to our search thing, our list of things to exclude. So let's just do that. But that's, I think we don't really need to, in the sense that we've got a lot of information here that's telling us what this organization is. Okay, so yeah, that's just want to be clear about that. Like, remember, reading laterally is a technique, and even if we have already decided something, we need to keep going from there. Someone, I think Josh mentioned something similar, like you do need to look at the site. Of course, of course you do. Of course you need to look at the site too. You don't read laterally and do nothing else, but we need to make sure that we understand what the techniques are, so we, when only one is available, for example, we can benefit from that technique. So I think this was in group 3. Yeah, Josh or Jonah, somebody was mentioning this, the idea that it is important to figure out who someone is, and yeah, you're right. We definitely do need to rely on authors and so on, but that wasn't really the question here. In this case, the question was, what does reading laterally tell you about Daily Kos in that case? But I think overall, you all are doing a good job in applying the method and getting it. I think group 4 still haven't done yours, so you should still do this. This is good practice, group 4. So I recommend you do this. And group 5 has started at least. Look, and they found information on Principia Scientific International. They found some information on MediaBiasFactCheck.com. So let's take a look at that source. Actually, it's sort of interesting. So this is I guess this is it. All right, so our ads are not loading. I know, that's right. I did that on purpose. So let's see if we can find specific. Okay, so let's see. This is the ad that I think Ryan was linking here, and yeah, this looks like it is pretty high in terms of. What are you guys doing? What are you doing? Don't fight over that.
We're just having a computer time. Trina, I said speak first.
Hey, you guys, neither of you are gonna get screen time if you fight over it. Take turns. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So this is they're still fighting, but anyway, this is a pretty good summary of what's going on. And so again, if you think MediaBiasFactCheck.com is reliable in terms of what it says about Principia Scientific, then we're done, and we've read laterally. I was trying to remember. I thought I was under the impression anyway that Media Bias Fact Check let users vote on a site in terms of scoring it. So maybe not. Maybe I'm mistaken in thinking that, but because I don't see it here. But if that were the case, I think that's something you might want to think about in terms of the reliability, because I could imagine a group kind of with a lot of users, they might target a particular poll and influence it a certain way. But yeah, I don't know. Looks good. So let's talk about writing. Let's talk about what we're actually working on here. So looking at the notes for today, this is the main thing, that you should be completing your research and adding your findings and discussing them. One thing to keep in mind in terms of your writing is this idea of a neutral point of view. Think about Wikipedia as the model for the kind of writing that we're doing, the tone of the writing that we're trying to get across here. And there is a certain amount of clarity to a Wikipedia article, and I think it arises from things like this, from this insistence on a neutral point of view. Neutral point of view is hard. I mean, we all have biases, we all have things that we believe, and they influence our decision and our decision making, our writing, everything. We can only do our best, but we should do our best. And here's a way to kind of start talking about it that way. It's actually really detailed information. I'm trying to find something that we can pull out. Impartial tone, sure. Oh yeah, words to watch for. That's a good idea. Just really so many good pieces of advice here. Oh, controversial subjects, great. Yeah, I think this is a good thing actually to keep in mind for some of the things you're talking about, like the COVID-19 and 5G stuff, is that sometimes certainly scientists do disagree, and there is the idea of the mainstream science community that scientists disagree with each other. The whole idea of publishing a paper really is to say that somebody else got something wrong, or like there's something that we didn't know, and here's this thing that we think we know now. That's normal. But the idea that there are certain fringe points of view that are so far out of the mainstream that they aren't worth comparing on equal terms. They aren't really, the fact that, so in other words, the fact that there aren't very many articles out there proving that, the Apollo moon landings actually happened, that doesn't mean they were fake. It just means that the theory that they're fake is so out there that there's no point in debunking it or disproving it over and over again. It's a bad theory. So, we need to look at weight of different points of view carefully as we look at those. That has to do with evaluating your evidence when you're doing your writing. Yeah, really a lot. I really recommend reading this article if you're trying to figure out how to revise and confine your writing. This particular that particular article is quite good at doing that. So I definitely recommend that. Okay, so let's see. I'm not sure. Ross is talking about flat Earth for some reason. Yeah, sorry. Okay, well, I hope this is pretty clear, but like the actual things within this. But I wanted to see if we can try it out on some of your actual writing. So if you all are okay with it, I'm going to go ahead and look at your articles. So this one has nothing else in it yet, so it looks like you're just getting started still, group 1, and your claim, what claim are you all researching? Where did I put that? I put that list somewhere here. Is it this one? Here it is. Okay, so group 1, this is your claim. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this to your title just to make sure that's in there right. I guess we should write this as a question. Does Bill Gates want to implant a tracking chip in everyone, which will be the biblical mark of the beast? Okay. And like I said earlier, you can tweak the wording of that if you need to, but that's the basic question. This idea that there's going to be a biblical mark of the beast. I haven't seen if you all have discussed it yet, but I think a couple of things that were really interesting to me about this particular claim, and I did see this claim. I have seen several versions of it actually. two pretty interesting things here. Obviously, there's this idea of the idea of a vaccine and a tracking chip, which some people are concerned about. But the idea that a tracking chip or some kind of implanted technology will be the mark of the beast that's predicted in the Book of Revelation, that's a whole other can of worms or bag of snakes or something. I don't know what the right metaphor is, but that idea has been around for a while. I don't know. This is something that might be too much to go into, perhaps, but I think is worth at least mentioning or looking at as you think about what to research, possibly in the analysis section. But for this question, the whole idea of like the Satanism panic that was a big deal in the 1980s and 90s. That's something that I think this idea comes from, and that's I think we've seen a resurgence of the Satanism panic. And if you're not sure what that is, there's probably good Wikipedia articles about it, but it certainly was a thing. And growing up in the South, I grew up in Tennessee, is certainly something that I remember people being very concerned about. And just as evidence of that, the Onion, when Harry Potter was first coming out, the Onion published an article that was, of course, a work of satire, as the Onion is. And in the article, it was talking about how children were converting to Satanism after reading Harry Potter books, and it was very funny. It was clearly a joke, but one of my college professors, who also happened to be a pastor at a church, reported that some members of his congregation had shared that article with him, not understanding that it was satire, and they were really worried about it. They were really worried about Harry Potter converting children to Satanism, so they wondered what they should do about it. As a church. So it's something that people take seriously and certainly did. I've got lots of other examples from growing up in Tennessee of people getting freaked out about Satanism. Interesting times. Okay, so great. So let's take a look at some others. Looks like group 2 has already got a lot of content, which is excellent. This is good. You've got some, obviously you'll want to clean up a little bit, but it's looking good. I think this is a good example of how to write this opening paragraph. So your title is the question, does 5G cause COVID-19? Answer is no. And what you say here is, despite the recent, I really like the neutrality of how you've written this. Like, it's definitely, you're saying there is no evidence that 5G's phone service or phone, so that's good. I like it a lot. Also, I think it is true, and I think in my initial version I said coronavirus, but I think this is better. Just COVID-19 being the illness, I think that does make more sense than saying that it causes coronavirus, because coronavirus is an organism, so or is a class of organisms. So that's you can't look at 5G causing organisms to exist, but you could possibly you could possibly get sick from 5G perhaps, and then call it this. Sorry, I just got distracted because Samantha was asking. Samantha, it's at the top of your channel. So if you scroll all the way back up to the top of group 2, that channel, you'll see a link to the doc there. And I think if you'll need to request access, because they are not open editable. They are just open for whoever I let in. So so check it out. And there's actually a reason I'm doing it that way, but it's okay now. And a good job using this screenshot or image of this newspaper. I don't know what that says. Let's see, that's a Belgian newspaper, so is that Flemish? I don't know what language that is, but that's not a language I read, apparently. Maybe it's Dutch. Okay, somebody's playing piano. But yeah, I'm waiting around just to see in case you need access to it. But I will come back to it if you do. It should pop up with something to tell me. My phone has died, so I can't. Usually I see the pop-ups there. Okay, but that looks like you're off to a good start. Group 3, okay, so wait, what is this? I don't like that. Group 3, is COVID-19, I'm just going to rephrase this a little bit here. And the answer is no. Okay. So this one is, you're definitely correct in how you said this, and I definitely like the way you started constructing this timeline. You've got a lot of information here. This is great. You'll need to kind of massage this into something more prosaic, something more, article-like, but this is great. You might want to think about editing this a bit, like maybe make the dates headings or something. But I think this is really good. I think, yeah, okay, good. I was going to say this is a good example of what I was talking about earlier. If a claim starts as something, but then somewhere down the line it becomes something else. I think this is that shift right here when Zero Hedge gets a hold of it, which is a conspiracy site, I think. So that's good too that you've noted that. That does seem to be a pretty important shift, or an important event in the history of this story, so that's good. I would just say maybe there's a bit of too strong of a tone in the opening sentence here. I'm going to go and just edit this a bit, and as I talk through the changes I'm going to make, these are the kinds of editing advice that I think will help you have a more neutral tone throughout, so you should consider this throughout as well. So first of all, I don't recommend starting sentences, especially starting paragraphs with pronouns like it or their. So let's just make that the actual thing instead of, make it a more specific pronoun. The idea that it's ridiculous is something that I think your evidence here will show, but I don't think we want to say that word at the outset. I think I would actually, I'm not going to rewrite this on the stream here, but you might want to reorganize the sentence a little bit, and I think you could even follow the example from Group 2's syntax. Maybe say something like, even though a Chinese person was extorted out of something like a Chinese, is it a scientist? Maybe that would be more, I think it's a scientist. Or is it a group of scientists? Let me just, a group of Chinese scientists were removed from a microbiology lab in Winnipeg, but there is no evidence, blah, 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 in July 2019. And also, that's a long time ago. So, yeah, I the ... there is for you to complete with whatever you feel is the appropriate way to actually phrase that. But I think that's a more neutral way of stating it, and takes a little bit of the tone out. I think I would suggest removing this. In fact, let me just do this. We don't. Let me explain this here. I don't recommend using this word because we want the evidence in the article to demonstrate the ridiculousness, instead of just saying it is. So this is a thing we want to show instead of tell. That's going to be more convincing. Also, think about it in terms of a rhetorical context. Like, imagine you're someone who is worried about this being a biological weapon stolen from Canada. You might Google it. You might find this article that you all are writing. You don't want to see that this is a ridiculous claim because you just had that thought. You had that anxiety. You're worried about it. So if you see a source that says that you're ridiculous, you're not going to read it. You're going to think, well, this is written by the Canadian scientists, or this is part of the conspiracy. So if you state it more neutrally, you're more likely to be convincing to someone, because as soon as you get into any kind of strong language or name calling, you're done. Like there's no way you're going to change anyone's mind like that. So yeah, I see a couple of people on it right now. Of course, you're welcome to continue working on this and things like this. Whenever I make a comment on it, if you can leave it. Like, this one is more informational, so you can leave it if you want. But whenever I make a comment, which I will be doing a lot of in the next couple of days, you can resolve them if you think that you've made a change that removes the need for that comment. So that's something that make sure you use those buttons to resolve those comments as you find them. So that's probably a good way to kind of use that as a checklist of things you need to work on as you edit. So, okay, so hopefully Samantha's in Group 2's document by now or has access to it.
Dad, can I
Yes.
talk with Lainey now? I finished everything that I need to do.
Yeah.
Except for one thing, which isn't possible right now.
Okay.
Can you give me an hour on the white one?
How many? I feel like I keep giving.
I'm sorry, but there's not enough time.
All right, I'll try. I'm on a live video right now, but
Sorry.
it's okay. I'm the only parent home right now, so I'm the only one who can solve problems. Let's see. Okay. That should do it. Okay. Okay, how's it going? Everyone okay? So yeah, I was just making sure, Samantha, that you have access to this document. So let's see. Jonah, no, Aster, whoever that is. Which is that? Maybe that's Samantha. Let's see. I do have a tiny bit of battery on my phone, so okay. Like I think I can get you in. Hang on. Okay, there's a Gmail address. I won't say it out loud, but okay, so that's a couple of requests. So let me. Work through and improve these. I have just seconds of battery life left. Okay, I think that's it. I did not see them pop up in here. They probably come to my inbox on my email, but they're not. I kind of assumed that they would pop up somehow on this. So I think that has now allowed whoever's chatting with me on Twitch to have access. If not, let me know. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of others. Oh yeah, Group 4, coronavirus. Yeah, and again, we want to make these questions, so I'm going to go ahead and make this a question and fix the formatting here. Let me just, we want to just keep the styles consistent if possible. Did coronavirus originate with Chinese people eating bats? Might be a more elegant way to phrase that, but I think that's the right way to go. Yeah, I saw that bat soup. Looked really gross. I mean, I don't know. I think bats are awesome. I really like bats. So I'm certainly not want to eat one. That said, I think people think, I don't know. Whoa. I mean, I'm not a vegetarian, but bats I think are pretty interesting animals. I built a bat house in my backyard. That, as far as I can tell, remains unoccupied, although I do see bats occasionally flying through the yard, so, we'll see. I put it up as high as I could. It's like 20 feet up on a pole attached to my shed, so I think it's a good spot for a bat house. I mean, I see bats, so I don't know, but I think they might prefer to live in trees, so I think they might actually live in some of the trees behind my house, but yeah, so far I don't think they actually occupied the house, even though, I think I did a pretty good job making it look welcoming. I did at our old house that I lived at. I built a bat house, then also never became occupied. I did paint the Batman logo on the side of the bat house so that the bats would know that they were welcome, but they did not. So anyways, this article I haven't read, but I do like the Google Trends thing here. So you might want to. I would recommend actually. Well, let's see. Can we move this down? I say instead of starting with the image, why can't I move it? Oh, I am moving it. Okay, good. I say, yeah, put it there, and let's see. Does this let us put a caption on it? I don't think it does. So what I'd like for you to do is actually, these are figures or images. So this is true for the other articles with images too. It's just a paragraph immediately after it, and make that your description. Google Trends. This is a screenshot of Google whatever, do a quick description over there that's part of that caption. Also, we want to make sure that we include alt text on these. So where is alt text? Why can't I'm surprised that This is not part of the options here. Huh. That really should be. Whenever you put an image on the web, it should have the ability to add an alt attribute, which lets you provide a textual alternative to it in case the image can't load for some reason. You see that instead of the image. Also, if you are someone who cannot see, then you would hear your computer read that description instead of displaying the image, because if you can't see, then you can't see the image. So I don't know why Google Docs does not seem to allow alt tags on that, and we definitely need those. So that might be something I need to figure out later. It really would it would be pretty similar to the caption. Like you'd be saying, in this case, you'd just be saying, it's a line graph of a Google Trend result for this time period and so on. That's interesting. Yeah, okay, and so this is great evidence too. This is great data for what you're looking at. This is a claim that no one had any thoughts about before, before 2020 certainly. You can actually change the time window for these. Sometimes I think this is a pretty good one, but you can actually change the time range that Google Trends is showing you. You can also link to a specific result, so I think you should do that here in this area of this article, group 4. Okay, great. So that person on Twitch is in. So. Excellent, good work. I mean, I'm glad it worked. Okay, so this one, I kind of struggled in writing the question, so like trying to get the right wording. So this is one definitely that feels like you could tweak it. So let's just try this. Are the hospitals actually empty? Actually, let me just start this question over again. I think I can probably maybe reverse the clauses and get to something that's a bit more clear. Let's see. Are allegedly sick people actually crisis actors? I don't know. I'm not sure if I like that better, actually, but you all can decide. You notice that there are two things here, of course. So there's the idea of crisis actors pretending to be sick, and then there's also the hospitals being empty. I guess either one of those things could be true or false independently of the other, but I think the way I've seen these things shared, that they're linked. So it also is a specific nuance or slice of that, the conspiracy part of that. So, okay, so this is, we do know that it's true, but we don't want to go ahead and say that. We do want to we want to, again, show that it's not true. Basically, I like the way, again, that group 2 was saying, like, that there's no evidence. Like, that's a way to pretty neutrally state that this is probably not true because there's no evidence that it's true. It's similar to what Twitter did to Donald Trump, if you remember. He said, there's going to be this massive voter fraud, and Twitter said, well, actually, there's no evidence of that. So it's about, in that case, Donald Trump was talking about the future, so who knows what's going to happen, but currently there is no evidence that what he says is going to happen is going to happen. It's the kind of claim that you need evidence for, because it's not what most people who look at this are expecting to happen. And so, he's got if he has some other evidence that it might happen, then he needs to show it, and he hasn't. So anyway, so this is there's actually a fair amount of discussion here, so this is good. With tweets, I found this tweet too. The Film Your Hospital hashtag is part of this. There's a lot here, so I think you were correct that this is misinformation, this particular tweet. But we've got to do more. Like, we really need to dig into this. So this is, at least if it's the video I saw, like I saw someone using the Film Your Hospital hashtag, and it was. What I saw was it was someone on like a guerrilla style, like shaky cam footage of showing the back of an ambulance, and then kind of from a distance watching someone being wheeled into an ER and then wheeled back out, and then they got up off the gurney and then they did it again. Like, they rehearsed it a few times. So it was someone getting footage of someone else getting footage of someone being taken into a hospital multiple times, and there's lots to unpack there. So first of all, like, even if that did happen recently, does that prove that all sick people are actors? No, it doesn't. But because it's a video, there's some work that you can do to figure out what is that actual video, like what is actually going on there. Is this whole thing being staged? Like, is the staging of it also being staged so it can be filmed as proof? That does happen. Was there some other perfectly legitimate reason why someone was filming someone being taken into a hospital? I can certainly think of legitimate reasons to do that. Maybe, I don't know, shooting a TV show, who knows? But, see what you can find out about that. I don't know what this particular one is, but see if you can actually address whatever the specific claims are in that video by finding out what the actual video is in this case. And I like that you've got screenshots here, but you should also include links to them, because it would be nice to, at least I'm curious about looking at the actual tweet in this case. Let's see, Nibor79 2. Let's see. That's an unusual Twitter name, by the way. I don't know if that's a bot, but we can, we can take a look. Maybe could be a bot. All right. Okay. Sure. All right. Fine. Normal kind of stuff. Yeah, so again, this is the idea that the rioting and looting they're being paid to protest. I mean, this account does seem pretty consistent in its point of view and what it's posting. Certainly it's possible for a person to believe these things and post these things. But, we could take a closer look and see. It's interesting. This is actually another example of a fake news tweet. This image, it turned out, was not actually from New Zealand. People shared it as a kind of a meme, but it was actually from Alabama, I think. And it was a few years ago. It wasn't at all related to coronavirus kind of things. Yeah, this stuff does get depressing looking at these things. But let's see. I'm trying to find this particular one, but just the volume of tweets from this individual is pretty high, so that might also be. Did I already scroll? Maybe I already scrolled by it. When was this one? March 31st. I think I already went past March 31st. No, I didn't. I was only in May. Goodness. Well, I'm not going to dig into it any deeper, but these are the kind. I mentioned it's an unusual name. I don't really know, like Nibor. I don't know what that. Oh, maybe it's Robin. Maybe it's Robin backwards. That is kind of reasonable. It's kind of funny too. Okay, well, again, with these, if you can provide a link to it, that's great, and a screenshot too, because a screenshot lets you preserve it just in case that account gets deleted or something. Then you can still have evidence of what was tweeted. Yeah. Okay, so group 6 years you don't have anything in here yet. Certainly still time to complete it, but I should get started on it today. Let me see, what was your claim? You are looking at, oh yes, this one. So is Bill Gates working on vaccine nanotechnology that will reprogram human DNA with alien DNA? Yeah, so there you go. I don't know, probably not, but it's the kind of thing that I sure would like some evidence. If someone, like, if that were true, that would be pretty interesting. So I would like some evidence that is true, but so far I've not seen any evidence. So yeah. All right, well, so I've been going about 45 minutes, probably should be wrapping it up now. I spent this time mostly going through the articles in their current versions and providing a few thoughts, so hopefully that was helpful. Let me review those just really quick and then remind you a couple things about what you need to have turned in tomorrow. So this is, of course, didn't like here yet. This is still the template. So group 6, you need to really start writing. Group 5 looks like you got a lot of stuff here, but you make sure you include links to the tweets if you can, and also make sure that you're actually showing the evidence. Remember, the neutral point of view will help you do that. Instead of saying that obviously people are really sick, let's maybe look at the claims that they're not sick and see if those claims have any merit, if the people making those claims are reliable. I mean, that might be a way to proceed. Group 4, let's see, the BATS one. Yeah, I think you all are on a good track with this one. And like using the Google Trends there. With this one and with all of them, I want to make sure we can figure out how to do alt tags. For group 3, I think you've got a lot of great information here and evidence. There's more to come, I think, especially with the analysis, but you know, you've got a good start here. Remember tone, right? I mean, ridiculous is probably too strong of a word at this point. At least it's going to derail part of your rhetorical work there. This is a good response, a good summary of the reason that that's false. You still have some work to do in prevalence. Remember to cite your sources if you can. Okay. Will it live forever? I don't know. But see if you can find more about this news source, I guess, and make sure you cite that. Make sure you cite this I can't pronounce it, but this source here. This is the newspaper's title, so we should italicize that, by the way. Make sure you cite that, and then make sure you provide a caption for it. You know, it might be worthwhile too, like, go ahead and figure out if you can, like, is this really a newspaper, and was this article actually ever published? I mean, that would be worth figuring out. Also, like, these are, like, you're making some evidentiary claims here, so you need to cite your sources. Like, make sure you make it clear how you know this. So, French conspiracy website called La Mouton en Rages. I'm not great with French. So if they're the ones who made this first connection, how do you know that they were the first? Like, did you find that by going upstream until you found that? Or did you find, say, a Snopes article talking about that? If it's a Snopes article, make sure you cite that. Otherwise, this is, you know, it's plagiarism to take that information without crediting it. If you did it yourself, talk about how you traced it there, like how you got it. Because I imagine you didn't start off by looking at French conspiracy sites. So how did you get to that French conspiracy site if you did work it that way? So make sure you cite your sources. This is true for everybody, obviously. Yeah, and then group 1, still more or less the template, but some work to do here. Remember where my suggestion about Satanism, that might be an interesting way to add some things to that. Okay, so some work still to do. I know many of you are probably working on this tonight and tomorrow, and that's fine. I will be online periodically, and so I will be available to help answer questions if I can. Once these articles are complete, then I will be doing a more intensive kind of copy editing review of each of these, probably with a video. So look for that probably early next week. As far as your individual work, I know with some groups you've delegated the tasks. You all are responsible for the entire article. So if you're waiting for someone to complete their part, I mean, or maybe encourage them to complete it, but understand that some people might they might need to do it a little later, and that's okay with me. But make sure that they know what they're doing. Make sure you give them instructions and help as far as what they need to do. As far as everyone's work, the thing that you turn in for this article is your reflection. So this is just ideally on your blog, unless you have a good reason not to put it on your blog, and that's understandable. But ideally, it's something that you write on your blog where you talk about the work you did for this article. And specifically, I'm really looking for you to make connections between the techniques discussed in the textbook and the work that you did in the article. So say things like reading upstream, or going upstream is the process of finding the original source and as described in this textbook. And I did that to find out who first made this connection between Bill Gates' tracking chip and the mark of the beast. So in other words, find a way to actually connect those dots using the methodologies. So that's what you're turning in for the web literacy project. For the module, it's the same thing that we did last week for the creativity modules. So that's going to be at least 2 blog entries and some discussion or participation in the channels, and a video, a short 60 to 90 second video talking about what you did. So yeah, that should be pretty familiar, hopefully, to you all. Okay, well, if you have thoughts about the social media claim that I put there, the idea, or the competing ideas about social media responsibilities in light of truth, then certainly be interested to hear what you have to say. You can discuss in the channel or on your blog or wherever else. Yeah, otherwise, just focus on completing the article and completing on writing your articles and your modules. So I think that's it, and this will wrap up my post. This will wrap up, all my videos for this week, and then I'll be joining you all again on Monday with some more information about what we're going to do next. This is the last coordinated group project, or the only coordinated group project for the class. So there are 2 or 3, depending on your count, 2 or 3 more pretty big projects for this class, but they'll be individual kind of things. So I know group projects are tricky logistically, and even more so online, as I found. But they are important, so I want to get through it and move on to some other things. Okay, great. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you're all doing well, and have a good weekend.